Alchemy is one of the most broken skills in KCD2. Not only will it earn you a boatload in cash, alchemy will also allow you to brew potions that earn you more XP, make you stronger, and even let you be less stinky. And to be successful with it, you need two things: herbs and comprehensive reading skills. And if you have clicked on this video, you probably don't have the latter, but after watching this guide, you won't even need it anyway. Hello ladies and gentlemen, my name is MedioCore, I make RPG content, and today I will teach you all you need to know about alchemy. Let's start with the basics. Potions can be brewed at any alchemy station. Here you'll have a selection of 4 bases, which will always be available. These bases form the foundation of any recipe, with additional herbs and ingredients completing the mix. Recipes dictate which bases you need to use and in what order you have to add, boil or grind different ingredients. These ingredients can be picked in the wild or you can buy them from the herbalists in the region. For herbs that are more rare, this is sometimes a better option. Recipes do not need to be unlocked beforehand, as you will receive them upon your first successful brew of any recipe. Before we get started, allow me to explain some concepts to ease your way into becoming a drug lord. Collected herbs are like your hairline. The more time passes, the less it will hold. Herb freshness is indicated by the heart counter in the inventory. The fresher your herbs are, the higher quality your potions will be. You can also dry your herbs to prevent them from going bad at any drying rack. But know that using more than one dried herb type per brew will not result in the highest quality. When selecting herbs, keep this in mind for the best return on investment. Now that we have our base and herbs, we can start adding them to the cauldron. Herbs can be selected by pressing the inventory button. From there, your selected herbs will show up on the shelf. These herbs are now available for your alchemy practices. All recipes will at some point tell you to boil the cauldron for an X amount of turns. What the f does that mean? Boiling the cauldron happens every time you put it down on the fire. What they mean by turn is a full turn of the sand glass. If you flip the sand glass right after moving down the cauldron, it will start boiling at the start of one turn. A full turn takes roughly 8 1/3 seconds. It's important to raise the cauldron back up after you're done boiling. Sometimes you'll have to boil with the bellows. Instead of letting the turn boil, you just have to use the bellows as well. For the best result, don't do this unless the recipe specifically tells you. And remember to raise the cauldron when you're done. Recipes can require ground herbs as well. You can do this by putting herbs in a pestle mortar and grinding from there. You could do this while the cauldron is boiling, but be mindful that this locks you in an animation that takes quite a while. Recipes can be finished by pouring from the cauldron. This is done by grabbing a vial from the left and holding it over the cauldron. This will end the brew and you will receive your potions if you've done everything right. Sometimes a potion must be finished by distilling. Rather than filling the vial from the cauldron, you use distill on the left. This is mostly done when potions are based on spirits. Now let's go over some tips and tricks. When I was playing split screen with my homies, I noticed that having a torch equipped while doing alchemy actually lightens your brewing station, making it more visible. The dish can be used to store ingredients for later, which is especially helpful if you need to clear your pestle or mortar, for example. If you, despite my superior instructions, still mess up anywhere in the process, Henry will always let you know why.
Not good at all. That'll be those old herbs.
You can prepare any known recipe from the recipe book, meaning that you will automatically set up all ingredients, provided you have them in your inventory. Keep in mind that this can select old herbs, so only do this when you're certain you don't have them. Let's have a conversation about the perks you'll need. Secret of Matter allows you to extract more potions from one alchemy attempt. This effect is amplified in the second level of this perk. These perks cannot be chosen in conjunction with Secret of Equilibrium, but with this guide you won't even need it, so if you've chosen this already, I want you to go to your room, think about what you've done, and rinse your mouth with Lethean Water. The Secret of Secrets perk requires level 16 alchemy, and it allows you to make the best version of a potion, but only if you follow the recipe to the letter. If only there was an idiot-proof guide out there on how to do that. Potion Seller allows you to sell the potions you make for more. Art of Preservation slows herb decay, and the rest of the perks are up to you. Our priority is to get level 16 as soon as possible for the Secret of Secrets perk. Let me show you a way to level up fast. What's up, y'all? I'm Witch. Our destination is the garden in front of the apothecary. Here, we can pick all the sage and chamomile we'll need. After getting some sage and chamomile, we can start brewing. We're gonna make a bad version of the chamomile decoction. We'll do this by adding wine to the cauldron and adding the chamomile and sage we have picked earlier. With a cauldron full of wine and the fresh herbs, all we need to do is add 2 chamomile and 1 sage in the cauldron and then we can finish up. This will result in a bad version of the chamomile decoction. Making this recipe takes no time at all and it will net you with decent alchemy XP. After hitting level 16, there are 2 recipes that are absolutely essential for the rest of the game. The first one is Henry's Fox, which will increase your stats and XP gains for 2 days. This is a game changer and from now on I don't want to see you playing the game without the buff of Henry's Fox. This recipe consists of oil, 1 St. John's wort, 1 nettle, 1 belladonna and 1 charcoal. All of which can be bought from herbalists. We start off by putting oil in the cauldron. We then grab 1 St. John's wort and 1 nettle. For now, we'll store that in a pestle and mortar. We can grind those at the same time. The grind never truly stops, but after we're done grinding, we can put the whole shebang in the cauldron. After which we'll have to boil for 2 turns. Remember to put the cauldron down, otherwise nothing will boil. Immediately after putting the cauldron down, you flip the sand glass. Since I have some time left, I already put my charcoal in the pestle mortar. It's now time for the second turn of boiling. So we wait for that to finish and then we can raise the cauldron back up to stop the boiling process. We can then proceed with grinding the charcoal. This will take some time, but after you're done you can add it to the cauldron. We then grab 1 serving of belladonna and add that to the cauldron. We can now start boiling for the final turn. Keep in mind that after this turn we'll be pouring the potion. This will finish the entire process. Before you do this, make sure you raise the cauldron back up, as it's quite easy to overboil. Pouring potions can be done by grabbing a vial from the left and holding it over the cauldron. If you've done everything right and you have the Secret of Secrets perk, this will always result in Henry's Fox. This is the most useful potion in the game in my opinion. Another essential potion is Henry's Savior Schnapps, which allows you to save the game. We start by adding wine to the cauldron. We then add 1 fresh nettle to the mix. Now this part works a bit different than other potions, but this will result in the fastest way to brew these. Immediately after putting the cauldron on the fire, I want you to activate the bellows 5 times. After you have done that, pick 2 belladonna and add them to the pestle and mortar, while the cauldron is still boiling. After you're done grinding the 2 belladonna, immediately add them to the cauldron and then flip the hourglass. We don't want to wait for the entire turn, but just flipping the sand glass ensures that the belladonna is boiled for long enough. After raising the cauldron back up, you are ready to pour and finish, which should result in Henry's Savior Schnapps. You now know everything you need to know about alchemy. For good measure, I will now go over every single recipe in the game in alphabetical order. If any of this has proven particularly useful to you, you can help me out by liking and subscribing. Aesop increases your horsemanship and hound mastery, while making other animals less cognizant of you. We start by adding spirits to the cauldron. The next step is grinding to comfrey in the pestle and mortar. After you're done grinding, you can add the boar's tusk to the cauldron as well. These secondary ingredients will always be stored on the book next to the recipe book. After putting in the boar's tusk, you have to boil for 2 turns. So patiently wait for that to happen and then grind 1 belladonna and add it to the cauldron. You could technically grind the belladonna while you're boiling the cauldron, but you can't turn the sand glass while grinding, so you have to be precise in your timing. If you make a mistake during brewing, you won't end up with the best version of the potion, which is why I'm very careful while showing you these recipes. Now that we have the ground belladonna in the cauldron, we can finish up. Rather than pouring the potion, we have to distill it. So grab a vial like you normally would, but instead of pouring from the cauldron, pour from the still. This should make you end up with the best version of Aesop. Aqua Vitalis turns Henry into a tank. As the name suggests, we start off by adding water to the cauldron. The next step is adding 2 fresh dandelion to the mix, which we then boil for 1 turn. After boiling, we grind 1 marigold and add it to the cauldron. We then boil everything for 2 turns. Keep in mind that this is once again a potion you'll have to distill. Aqua Vitalis comes in handy when you're exploring and you're not sure if a fall will break your legs. Artemisia is basically steroids. We start off by adding spirits to the cauldron. We proceed with 1 handful of sage and boil everything for 1 turn. After boiling, grind 2 wormwood, which you can immediately add to the cauldron. We then boil that for 2 turns and we're ready to distill afterwards. This potion comes in handy when you have to carry heavy loads or if you have to crack stupid little peasant skulls. Bane poison can hurt and immobilize enemies, and you can even put it in the cooking pots of bandit camps. We start off by putting wine in the cauldron. We then supplement the mix with 1 wormwood. We then boil that for 2 turns. After which we grind 2 belladonna and add that to the cauldron. We now have to boil everything for 1 turn using the bellows. So what I do is put down the cauldron over the fire, turn the sand glass and then press the bellows 4 times. This will drastically increase the flame beneath the cauldron. So immediately after the sand glass has completed its turn, raise the cauldron back up. We then add the fly agaric to the cauldron. Now all you have to do is distill the poison. You now have a surefire way to sabotage enemy camps by giving them the cramps. Bowman's brew will make Henry a better archer. This potion is based on spirits. The next step is adding 2 eyebrights to the cauldron. We then have to boil that for 3 turns, so that's more than enough time to grind your 1 St. John's wort and add that to the cauldron. So as soon as you enter your second turn, start with the pestle mortar. This will make it that you cannot turn the sand glass in time for the third turn. But as you might remember, a full turn takes 8 and a bit seconds. So as soon as I finish grinding, I set everything in the dish and then I flip the sand glass. If you wait for the sand glass to be at the halfway point, you'll have boiled 3 turns. If that's too confusing, you can just wait to grind after you have done your 3 turns of boiling first. In any case, we can add the ground St. John's wort to the cauldron. We then have to boil this for 1 turn and once again we'll have to use the bellows. So like I said before, 4 repetitions of the bellows is enough. We then raise the cauldron and we're ready to distill everything. Boxed Bloods increases your stamina and regeneration. The first step of this potion is to add oil. We then grind 1 St. John's wort and add 1 comfrey to the cauldron. When you have your oil, 1 ground St. John's wort and your 1 comfrey to the cauldron, you'll boil it for 1 turn. When that turn has concluded, add 1 dandelion to the cauldron. Then press the bellows a total of 4 times. When your turn with the bellows and the dandelion has concluded, you are ready to pour, which should result in a medieval equivalent of white monster energy. Chamomile brew will make you regain more energy and health from sleeping. You can start brewing this potion by adding wine to the cauldron. Immediately after, add 2 chamomile to the mix. We'll just have to boil this for 1 turn. The next step is to grind 1 sage and add it to the cauldron. So you can already put the sage in a pestle mortar while everything is boiling. When boiling has finished, you can grind everything. Put the ground sage in the cauldron and then you're ready to pour. This is one of the easier potions to make perfectly, and granted it's not that useful either. The Cockerel potion increases your energy and makes it deplete slower. This potion starts with adding spirits to the cauldron. We then grind 2 instances of mint and boil that for 1 turn. When the first boil has been completed, we have to add 1 valerian. We then have to boil everything for 2 turns, so rather than picking the cauldron back up, we can just let it rest over the fire. After boiling that for 2 turns, we're ready to distill. Do be mindful that before you distill everything, you have to raise the cauldron back up, and this should result in Cockerel. Now a potion for all of you Taco Bell enjoyers out there. The Digestive potion consists of water. When you've put water in the cauldron, you'll need to add 2 thistle. After that, you'll need to boil it for 2 turns. The next ingredient is ground nettle. After you've added that, the next step is to boil for 1 more turn. The last part of the puzzle is to grind 1 charcoal. When you have added that to the cauldron, then you'll be ready to pour. This potion is the shit. This is basically Rohypnol. The Dollmaker poison consists of spirits. It's then supplemented with 2 instances of herbaris. After adding in 2 herbaris, the cauldron should boil for 3 turns. This gives us more than enough time to grind 1 valerian before the boiling is done. But once again, if you don't want to take any risks with your ingredients, you can just wait for the boiling to finish before grinding. But if you're like me and you're feeling a little adventurous, you can do the grinding while boiling. The next step is to add the ground valerian to the cauldron, after which we'll have to boil once again for 2 turns. When you're finished boiling, it's time to distill the poison. If you did everything correctly, you should end up with Henry's Dollmaker poison. The Embrocation potion increases your agility as well as your sprint capacity. We start off by pouring oil in the cauldron. We then add 1 poppy and 1 valerian to the mix. We'll boil that for 2 turns. Then we're supposed to put 1 eyebright in the pestle mortar. We put the ground eyebright in the cauldron as well as a boar's tusk. As soon as we have added everything to the mix, it's time to boil it all for 1 turn. When we're done boiling, we are ready to pour. This should give you the best version of the Embrocation. This is a potion I wish my uncle had had. We start the hair of the dog with water. We then grab 1 sage and 1 St. John's wort and add both to the cauldron. Once we have done that, we're supposed to boil for 3 turns. Since the next step is adding 1 ground mint, I already added to the pestle and mortar. When I enter the second turn of the boiling, I start grinding the mint. This actually takes longer than 1 turn. So when I am done with grinding, I add it to a dish so that I can turn the sand glass once more. Keep in mind that a bit more time has passed, so the boiling will actually be done when the sand glass is halfway. After raising the cauldron back up, we are ready to add the ground mint, after which we'll be ready to pour. And this will result in Henry's hair of the dog. We have now reached firearms. This will always be the same quality. We start off by adding water to the cauldron. We then grind 1 saltpeter and 1 sulfur. These ingredients can be bought from merchants. When you're done grinding, you can add it to the cauldron, after which you have to boil for 2 turns. When you're done boiling, you have to grind 1 charcoal and then add that to the cauldron as well. It's now time to boil for 2 more turns. Since you're making ammunition, you have to pour and grind, which can be done by pressing X on a pestle or mortar, and that's how you get lead balls. Lethean Water is a potion that will reset all your perk points. The first step of this potion is to add spirits. We then grind 2 wormwood and add that to the cauldron. The next step is to add 1 belladonna, and after we've done that, we can boil for 3 turns. After boiling, the last step that awaits us is adding 1 henbane. From there, we're ready to distill, and this should net you Lethean Water. Henry's Lion Perfume gives you a significant boost to your charisma for a short time. We start off by adding spirits to the cauldron. After which we'll need to add 2 sage as well. We can then boil the entire concoction for 2 turns. After the boiling is done, we have to grind 2 mint and then add that to the cauldron as well. The last step is to pour everything into a vial, and this should result in getting Henry's Lion Perfume, which is basically a free charisma check. Henry's Lullaby poison makes enemies sleepy. To start, we add oil to the cauldron, after which we take 1 puppy and we'll boil that for 1 turn. When the first turn is done, add 1 thistle and boil for an additional turn as well. When that's done, you need to grind 1 herb Paris and add it to the cauldron. After which, the potion is ready to be completed, and it can also be used in quests apparently. Marigold Decoction gets rid of hangover and heals you for quite a bit. To get started, add some water to the cauldron. Then add 1 nettle and boil for 2 turns. Grab your trusty pestle and mortar and grind 2 marigold, which you will then add to the cauldron. If you've done it correctly, you should end up with Henry's Marigold Decoction. Mintha Perfume is weaker than the Lion's Perfume, but it lasts longer. To start off, fill the cauldron with wine. Then grind 3 dandelion and 1 mint with a pestle and mortar. Put all of that in the cauldron and boil for 2 turns. When that's done, raise the cauldron back up and add 1 marigold to the mix. Now that you have the marigold in the cauldron, put it on the fire and boil for 1 turn with the bellows. When the turn with the bellows is completed, you are ready to distill the potion. Now we're moving on to a potion my uncle definitely did have. We start off by adding spirits to the cauldron. We then follow that up by adding 2 wormwood to it too. We then boil for 2 turns. Since our next step is grinding 2 mints, we can already do that while we're boiling. You then add the mints to the cauldron and then you boil everything for 1 turn. After you're done boiling that, you'll be ready to distill. Keep in mind that there's no strong variant of Moonshine. Nighthawk gives you night vision and makes you less sleepy. The base of this potion consists of water. We then grind 2 eyebright and add that to the cauldron as well. If we then add 1 belladonna to the mix, we're ready to boil for 3 turns. Since we have to wait for 3 turns anyway, we can already get started on grinding 1 chamomile. After we've added the chamomile, we're ready to pour the potion, and this should result in Henry's Nighthawk. The Painkiller brew mitigates how much injuries will mess you up. To get started, we add spirits to the cauldron. Then we have to grab 3 poppy and grind it with a pestle and mortar. The next step is to add 1 marigold to the mix. We then boil everything for 1 turn using the bellows. Once you've boiled for 1 turn with the bellows, it's time to add 1 fresh comfrey to the mix, which you'll then boil for 2 turns. Once you're ready with boiling, it's time to distill the potion. This potion helps with wenches. Basis of this potion is water, after which we'll have to grab 1 cobweb and 2 eyebright and add that to the cauldron. We then boil everything for 3 turns. As always, since we have to wait 3 turns, we can grind 1 valerian in the meantime. Once you've added the ground valerian to the cauldron, all you have to do is boil for 1 more turn and then the potion will be ready for pouring. Scattershot is once again ammunition we can make. We start off by adding water to the cauldron. Then we have to grind 1 saltpeter and 1 sulfur. Once we've done that, we add that to the cauldron and boil for 3 turns. We then have to grind 1 unit of leached coal. So after boiling and grinding, add the ground leached coal to the cauldron. Then boil everything for 1 more turn and then finish up using the pestle mortar. Ammunition does not have a strong variant. Unfortunately for you stinky boys, soap doesn't either. We can make soap by adding oil to the cauldron. We then grind 2 thistle and add that to the cauldron as well. After which we have to boil for 2 turns. When that is done, add 1 dandelion to the cauldron and then boil everything for 1 turn as well. When you're done boiling for that turn, you can grind 1 charcoal and add it to the cauldron, after which you'll be ready to pour. This should result in soap, hopefully. The last recipe is Fever Tonic, but that's bound to a quest and I spent all my time making this video rather than playing, so I don't have it yet.